right, welcome back to Served. I'm really excited for this interview this week. A lot of times I'll kind of, if I'm in the middle of an interesting conversation, which I found myself in with our next guest last week, and I'll flow, hey, you should come on the podcast sometime. They're like, oh, yeah. And then it like never happens. It's happened. I put in an email. I said, please come on. I'll give you a quick bio, but this woman is an absolute rock star and has been so important in the game of tennis for a while now. Stacey Allaster, I'll give you the quick rundown, was chairwoman CEO of the WTA from 2009 to 2015, president of that WTA, which I read was an invented job just for her from 06 to 09, actually taught tennis, was director of player development in Ontario. I don't know, get into the weeds on if that was successful or not. I don't know. Maybe we'll work backwards there. While serving as CEO of the WTA, $1 billion in diversified contracted revenues. $1 billion. I'm going full Austin Powers right now. $1 billion. 2020, first female tournament director at a slam. I'm sure that was an easy year to assume that role. 50 over 50 visionary as named by Forbes. Joined the USTA in 2016. Stacey, first of all, congrats. On a crazy successful U.S. Open. Even for me, having been there and spent my childhood there, participated in it from the player side on the juniors. I've seen the top of it. I've seen the worst of it along the way. And I got to say, I think it's the best sporting event in the world right now.
Thank you, buddy. And look, thanks for all of your support of American tennis overall and this U.S. Open. I think I can speak on behalf of the entire U.S. Open team. This was our best ever. And, 2023 was off the charts. Record. And just all the magic of 50 years of equal prize money and Coco winning. And we just didn't know how 2024 would stack up. And we just, as you said, knocked it out of the park. And there's no doubt in our minds, it is the best U.S. Open in our history on so many levels.
Yeah, and I was kind of one of, and I often am probably overconfident about what I think I get right on this show. To offset that, I need to tell you something that I think I was completely wrong about. In the vacuum of the tail end of the careers of our icons, right? Like, you got to assume Federer goes away, stuff's probably going to get a little worse before it gets better. Serena goes away. It's probably going to get a little worse before it gets better. It's a coin flip on Rafa at this point. Novak will probably take what I'm about to say as a slight and turn it into 10 more slams, but we're probably closer to the end with him than we are to the beginning. I was the one who was outspoken. I was like, well, where does tennis go from here? I don't know. I mean, I think there's going to be a vacuum of interest for a little while, and that's gotten flipped on its head. I mean, completely and totally.
Yeah, look, you're right to say that when we have, the greatest of greats transition or evolve to their next chapters, we normally see a little softness. And one of my other day jobs was running the Canadian Open. And, when Agassi and you and Sampras, Lindsay, Monica, when you all retired, Graf, there was softness in the market. And we all, were holding our breath at 21, because really 22, there was no Roger and there was no Rafa. It was special with Serena's evolvingness.
Evolving.
I would say this. I know, I can't say she retired. So be upset with me.
She's just evolving.
She's evolved.
Yeah.
She's evolved. Anyway, I always say, and it is true, the champions of today stand on the shoulders of the champions of yesteryear. But the difference is these athletes, men and women, didn't just stand on your shoulders and those before. They leapfrogged off of them. And the quality of tennis on the court's been awesome. There's a whole cast of personalities, which is great. And we are blessed, I think, as a sport to have such amazing talent on the court right now that's defying, the past trends.
Yeah, and I kind of got, it was... I admit that I got that part completely wrong as it pertains to the passion of tennis fans, and you kind of forget at all moments, no matter who the champion is that this game that we love is bigger than any one champion. And that's not a slight to any of the champions. That's a credit to the sport of tennis. That being said, I also think, and I want to talk about this sensitively because obviously we know the negative consequences of this, but during COVID, participation in tennis goes up 37%, 40. I get the, but
4 years is years of steady growth.
So thereabouts, but it shot as far as participation. The people playing tennis in 2020 for the first time weren't necessarily tennis fans yet, right? It's like, we like this game because we can keep some space, we can socialize, we can feel normal for an hour maybe. And then as it progresses, 2023, 2024, along with everything that you said, the Cocos of the things and the involvingness of the Serena in the same tournament that Coco delivers, are these people who started playing tennis during COVID, are they becoming fans now because they've been around it for 3 or 4 years? And does that have anything to do with the success of the U.S. Open, or am I just trying to tell stories?
No, I think we have to attribute it more fandom. The more people playing, they're going to watch. So there's no doubt that we have new fans because we have new players that have come to the game. Look, I think also at a real macro level, the U.S. Open's the largest international event in the world annually. We're in the entertainment business. 60% of the fans who join us in New York don't play tennis.
Come on.
There's
Say that
an
again.
Opportunity. Almost 60% of those that attend do not play.
Count me in.
So look, it is the place to be in New York City for 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
And look at the power of the stars that come out. It's the event of the summer. And how great for our sport, because at the end of the day, 1 million fans and all of the great records, we all get up every day to use that US Open to inspire a love for tennis so that more people leave from the ground or from watching and go out and pick up a racket and hit balls. And, this obviously gives us the fuel to then support our sections and our coaches so that, we have a chance to keep growing. And we have big, audacious goals. You've heard Lou Shear. We want to be the number one tennis playing nation in the world. We're at about 25 million players today. We want to get to 35 million by 35. And the success of the Open, this is an overarching engine that creates the halo and the energy, inspiration, and also obviously the revenue needed for that strategy.
And I'll tell you, and this is, I hate anecdotal stories trying to prove a point at scale. In my adult life, I can be won over by data quicker. But I'm going to break my own rule here. I think you're spot on as far as fandom and exposing people to tennis. So even though I was a child tennis player, I remember going to the U.S. Open for the first time in 1991 when I was 9 years old. And I remember I don't remember like where I was at a given time in July where I spent, I don't know, you're throwing rocks at a tree. Who knows what you do. And I remember that flight over Louis Armstrong, the old Louis Armstrong, which doesn't hold a candle to the new Louis Armstrong, past nostalgia, sentiment, and memories. And I remember flying over that venue, and it was the night that Connors was playing Patrick McEnroe. And the long 5-setter, I was like, I scored. I'm up past midnight. I'm on a plane. I don't have to go to bed till at least 1:30. This is like, I have it figured out. 2, flying over that stadium, seeing it full and going, my gosh, like tennis players can play to that many people. And it blew my mind. And the next week was the best week of my childhood. And at that point, I was damned if I wasn't going to be there one day, right? Like and so I do think it has that snowball effect when a kid goes, and we've seen the videos of Coco, dancing there when she's 12 years old. And then, I mean, that it absolutely flips a switch. And I'll tell you, with 1 million fans through the gates, 2.3 billion people interacting on social media, I think only about 2 billion of those were because of Taylor Swift.
We'll take it though.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Hell yeah, we'll take it.
influencer.
Yeah, anyone's like, oh, we don't want her. Shut up, dude. Are you kidding me? That like
We
people
do want her, absolutely. We're thrilled to have her, Kelsey and Patrick.
people don't know how to spell tennis were interested. That's the goal. That's what you want. So stop it. We want all of
That's
that.
it.
We
Yep.
want all of that there. But the point being, you hear those numbers, my mind goes to, okay, is one of our future U.S. champions in those numbers? Are they included in those numbers? And I'd bet a kidney that they are.
There is, and we have our Net Generation program. 1,500 kids play on those courts now. So think of you flying over Louis Armstrong today from across the country. Those kids having to play on 5 stadium courts, playing red ball before. It's life-changing. And the coin tossers. And I can tell you, we got this unbelievably magical email from a parent who, this young coin tosser just said, I believe that I belong on this court. I saw my name on the board. I'm going to play on that court one day. So you are 100% right. The US Open is so powerful as an inspirational tool to transform kids' lives. And you know what? 99% of them won't play on Arthur Ashe Stadium like you and Coco. But the other 99%, their lives are changed because sport is such a great tool with life lessons. And look at me. I never played pro tennis. Look at my career. No one would have said that would happen. A kid from Canada, never played pro tennis, no connections in sport, let alone tennis, could be the first female tournament director of the US Open and the head of the WTA and the head of the Canadian Open. Crazy. So I'm pretty passionate about what it's all about. And we definitely have hundreds and thousands of kids that we changed their lives these past 3 weeks.
Stacey, can you explain for us layman's what the coin tosser program is and how that kind of integrates into your guys' entire kids?
Yeah, agenda? So we work with our section so that kids across the country can come in and be part of those nightly coin tosses. And that happens across 5 or 6 courts. Plus, we have 1,500 kids that get to play pre-match.
Oh,
so
you're talking about during the U.S. Open, because I was about to go on a tangent about how it's actually a public facility and you can go play.
No, this is during the U.S. Open. 1,500 Net Generation kids.
I saw this.
So cool.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a one-day thing.
So cool.
No, every day on 5 courts.
Wow.
Before the day session and before the night session. And, it's so inspiring. Parents are chuffed. And that kid is taking the photo and putting it on the bulletin board, and it is going to be their compass for the rest of their lives.
I think my eyeballs would have fallen out of my skull if I would have been able to do that.
Oh, look, you have some that come off crying.
Yeah.
Yeah, this because they are so emotional about it. And look, Eddie, you are also incredibly special. You are one of those champions. And I'm not just saying this because we're chatting. But I can remember distinctly, we had you in the box. You were going out to do a part of the coin toss. There's a little kid who was, pushing, trying to get an autograph. And I'm like, pushing him back. And you said, hey, you, come here. And you too really make a difference by the number of autographs and photos that you do on a regular basis throughout the tournament.
That's nice. I think what I sit here and realize is that I think it's too easy for people watching an event from the outside. When it's perfect, you don't talk about how hard it is to be perfect. And when it's bad, it's easy for people to point out what's bad about it, right? It's like
isn't that the truth?
Yeah,
so true.
Yeah, but like I think
Very true.
To give you credit is I think I'm trying to as I'm thinking through the show. And I'm dealing kind of with the post-mortem of this year's U.S. Open and the fact that it's over and that I don't have it every day, for the next 2 weeks. I'm just thinking your ability to kind of peek around the corners, and I'm sure it takes a team, right? I'm sure that you have an amazing staff. You have to have an amazing staff, but the ability to peek around corners with what you just talked about with the kid aspect of it, and how do we build up that memory bank and at least have their association with tennis be positive. with turning Fan Week, and I know it started just before you came on as the full-time tournament director, but I know you were chief executive of the USTA that organizes the U.S. Open before that. Fan Week is a home run, close to 240,000 fans through. If I'm off it's not by much. For context, there are Major League Baseball teams that barely get 800,000 fans a year. So that's for qualifying. So we're not actually in the tournament yet. Some exhibitions, mostly free, and the only time they charge is to probably cover the cost of production for exhibitions, of which it's like $30 a head, and you get to see Alcaraz, Novak, Andre, McEnroe, and some of us other chuckers. But the ability to peek around the corners and not just say we have a big event, but I just admire you for, while you do have this thing that is this precious entity in the world of sports, not being complacent with that thing.
Well, I can tell you, this is hand on heart, because I've had a lot of years of experience, the best sport marketing team in the world.
It seems that way.
And we are highly competitive. As competitive as the athletes are, we are competitive. So it is a constant energy and vision. How are we going to grow? How are we going to take this US Open, this incredible gift for American tennis, and continue to, I'll use my Canadian roots, hockey stick the growth, not just in attendance, but in revenues. And, with my, Canadian Open and WTA experience, I know that qualifying are some of the best matches. But when I got there, we really weren't doing anything with it. And the factory was open. The plant was running. So let's use it as an opportunity. So we started Fan Week in 2017, put $50,000 in the budget. And we're all worried that it was going to cannibalize sales in the main draw.
No.
Boy, did we get it wrong.
No.
And but was a good wrong. And so I call it now, it's our court of dreams. If you build it, they will come. And I think we are the only professional sporting event in the world where the grounds are free to come on and see the world's best practicing in Arthur Ashe in those, luxurious courtside seats for 8 days. On Sunday, open practice, we had nothing going on except you could come and watch players practice.
So good.
We had 27,000 people.
Hell yeah, you did, because that's fun, because people are actually like
it's awesome.
Joking, working on stuff, throwing their toys. Like they're in prep mode. They're not in like, I'm serious and I'm on Ash mode. It's like you get more interaction for sure.
And players have been great. No one's pushed back on going to Ash. They are interactive with them. It's cool. And a poignant moment for me was Wednesday of qualifying. We're watching Elliott, our Texas Longhorn. He was in a battle with this Brazilian. There were 35,000 fans on site that day. For qualifiers, they get a main draw experience now. That energy that you get during a main draw from the fans, I'm happy for our qualifiers that they're now getting that same thing. And fans are loving it, because really there's some of the greatest battles that are happening. Makes or break an athlete's year. And, one of the special things we do, not just for kids, but for the athletes, you qualify for the first time of the Grand Slam. When you return to your locker, there's a ball from that match.
Yes,
and
all that shit matters.
It all matters. It isn't rocket science.
Wait, so what else is it? They get a ball? Sorry.
I saw a picture of this, so I know it's fantastic.
Yeah, you get a ball right from the match, and you get a picture. And for the Americans, we tried to hustle and be out there to do it right in front of the crowds. First time win on Ash. You come back, it's there. Dan Evans, he had the longest match in U.S. Open history. He returned to his locker, and there was a picture from that match. And it's just little things, but those are the things that make the difference to the athletes and to our fans. And that's kind of the macro lens that we bring every day. How are we going to surprise and delight and make this U.S. Open experience better and better every year?
Well, I will tell you, like this whole thing with like preparation meets opportunity. Normally something good comes of it. So if you're peeking around the corners and you start in 2017 with Fan Week, and I think I played that year. I think I played James, and it was on Grandstand. I'll tell you, like, it was a great initiative, but it wasn't what Fan Week looked like this year. I'll tell you that for sure. But also, when you're kind of poking this around, and obviously COVID puts a halt on it, but when you have initiatives like this, and then all of a sudden there's like, you talk about your marketing team being the best in the business. Why don't we throw in the first qualifier to ever win the US Open? So you actually go to Fan Week every week thinking that you might see the eventual winner. And we're not, and you can't say you're full of shit when we tell you that's a possibility, because it has happened. Like
it happened.
It happened.
It happened.
Yeah.
That's why,
it's
I
fantastic.
tell everyone, come during Fan Week. There's so much value and so much excitement. And you never know. You are seeing the stars of tomorrow, and they might just, in fact, win it, as you said. That was a magical year, 2022.
Hey there, Chuckers. I used to rely on precision, power, and maybe a little bit of innovation to keep my serve untouchable. Well, turns out those same things aren't just for tennis. They're for racing too. Who knew? Since 2017, Lexus Racing has been doing exactly that. Precision, power, and a whole lot of innovation. Last year, they teamed up with Vassar Sullivan and snagged the 2023 IMSA GTD Pro Class Championship with their Lexus RCF GT3. And let me tell you, that car has got more horsepower than I ever had in my serve. Don't tell my ego. But like any good athlete, one win just isn't enough. All right, a little too personal, but that's fine. They're back and they're gunning for another title in 2024. You can't miss those day-glow yellow and black Lexus RCF GT3 race cars on the track. And if you do somehow miss them, you'll definitely hear those V8 engines roaring louder than my victory yell after a big match. So if you want to see what happens when you mix tennis-worthy precision with race car power, follow Lexus Racing every weekend. Head over to lexus.com/motorsports to learn more about Lexus Racing and get all the details on upcoming races. Let's talk about, the successes. We could go on forever. I feel like this is a victory march through the show. Let's talk about some things, because not everything is perfect all the time. How the hell do we fix scheduling in tennis? Like, how do we deal with, players not walking off at 3 a.m. and there's only so much time you can do. There are restrictions. And what I want to do is I want to create a better understanding for viewers of the mechanics of, for example, moving 24,000 people out of Arthur Ashe Stadium while simultaneously needing to move in 24,000 people out of Arthur Ashe Stadium. There are dynamics. We're not just, in tennis, we're not just dumb people that are making mistakes, but walk us through scheduling, because it seems to be a problem that's not a US Open problem. We were talking about it in Australia this year. We continue to talk about it. Problems are easy to identify. What are potential solutions, and what are the factors that make it so tough?
So we look at it every year, and we had 2 late nights this year, and one of them was the worst, because not only did you have the day session going long in Ashe, you had the day session that went long in Armstrong. So it wasn't 24,000 in and out. It was another 28,000 for Day and Louis. And so both of the day sessions went long. So one thing that we did a couple of years ago, we went down to 2 matches on Ashe instead of 3. We still have 3 on Louis, but we start at 11. And, the unpredictability generally of a 5-setter. But look, you have women's matches that are going 3 hours that can push the day into the night. And it on average, it takes 50 to 60 minutes to clear Ashe, to clear it, to clean it, to get everybody out, and then safely get the next session in. On the night that we had the Novak and Sabalenka situation, it was an hour and 20, because we had to keep people outside the main gate, because the grounds were fully at capacity. And you also want to make sure that those fans who've been waiting for a good hour, that they didn't walk in and the match was, 30 minutes in. And that's what pushed that match to go on at 8:20. So what can we do? We looked at starting earlier on Ashe. We're talking about it. We all go 11 o'clock. We've been there before. Nobody's there.
But to be fair, when you were there before, there were 3 matches. You made it 2 matches,
Yep.
but then delayed the start an hour.
Yep, correct. So that's one possibility. It's not going to totally solve it, but it might help mitigate day running into night, because that's a variable. and we cannot start before 7. That's an ESPN thing. That's just reality. We are not going to go to one match.
No,
we're not going to be like
for
Roland Garros that has one match.
yeah. The thing that annoys me about the players, because obviously it's imperfect. Any event, any live event that you schedule that has a finish time that could be like I'll give you the context for our listeners from a player's perspective. One night match goes on, or like whenever you're following a match, right? You're a rolled ankle away from being on in 15 minutes. Like simply, like you have to prepare, you have to be ready. Basically when the match before you goes on, you need to be 20 minutes away from going on at all moments. And you can be 20 minutes away from going on for 6 hours, depending on what match you're following. So pretending as if there's like a scripted version of this problem isn't the place to start the conversation, in my opinion. And other thing, like I personally think the 11 a.m. start, like I maybe that's the easiest way to mitigate it. What you also run into
won't solve it 100% though. It could help potentially.
Yeah, you're buying an hour. But the other problem is that if those matches go quickly, you have nothing on Ash at like 2:30 in the afternoon.
Right.
Like, and then it's like
you're situation of swinging a match in. But
which
that
matters.
That can happen. Look, at the end of the day, it is the unpredictability of the length of the match. We know an average women's match is 1:44, and an average men's match is 2:45. So you've got a 4 or 5 hour window. You start at 7, you're finishing at 11:30, 12 on a good night, right? And you tell me, we introduced our late night that we could change and move a match. And so there were two situations. The Sabalenka match, it was getting past 11. We had grandstand being held. There was a little bit of weather. And I cringed at the idea of moving Sabalenka, I forget who she was playing, to grandstand at midnight. No one's going to watch that. No one's going to be there. But we would have got her on. Luckily, Novak did us a favor. I think won that in 4, so we could turn it quickly. The other night, we held Armstrong. The TV was there, ball crew, everybody was there. And again, a match moved along, so we got it through. But then we had a long match that followed. So there's that piece of the puzzle. And from what I hear from players, you guys are ready to go. You're talking about it. You're 20 minutes away. And you want the referee to come in and say, hey, guys, come back tomorrow. No, exactly.
Well, just to explain that out and start to interrupt, it's just my mind going, so to make that real, we're like, why can't you come back tomorrow? Like, you're already screwed. Like, the most stressful tournament of my life was the US Open because I played 40 some odd night sessions, right? You're already losing half, and they're also the best memories of those night sessions looking back. And I'm already losing half of a day recovery minimum. Right. If I go to the next day and all of a sudden I get caught in a 5-hour throwdown match and then I have to go back to back, that's not really a realistic scenario for me. If I can buy 10 hours on the front end, you're basically buying recovery at that point, a recovery from worst case scenario. And the other thing that I think us players are really dumb about that we shouldn't be allowed to do is we can't complain about, every person on earth, and it's not just tennis players. Would you like, Mike, producer Mike, Techie Sean, would you guys like more money or less money? Just generally.
I generally like more money.
You generally like more money? That's weird. Techie Sean, do you generally like more money or less money?
More money.
You like more money. Okay, so it seems like we have a consensus here. I also like that. You cannot complain about what TV needs. They are the biggest source of revenue that we have in sports, right? Just clear, done. So if they need a certain something and they're willing to commit to 12 years of an extension, and I want to get into that TV deal as well, you're going to tell them that they have to start at 5:30 because it's convenient for a third round match at the US Open?
Yeah, I mean, you also have to think about the West Coast with the morning. I mean, they don't want people having to wake up at 8 a.m.
Look, it's a global event. There's 200 countries watching.
Yeah.
So what's prime time for us? It is prime time in other parts of the world. Look, I wish we had an easy solve. The easy solve is players, they don't like, Wimbledon has a curfew, so they have a law. But you hear from players, they don't like having to stop or not go on.
Yes.
They don't. And I have such sympathy because I realize when the athletes get back, first of all, it takes them 3-4 hours to unwind, and they're not going to sleep
till 5
till
or 6
7.
in the
It's
morning.
not
It's
optimal.
brutal. And then because you go to 7, it doesn't mean you're going to sleep till 2. Like, it just doesn't work like that. It's brutal.
No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But as you get through it, they are some of the best matches in the history of the U.S. Open.
Mm-hmm.
And those fans love it. And the ball crew, they're not kids. They're adults. Everybody loves it.
You're a ball man.
So
talk to us about, so that's one piece of the scheduling. Another piece of scheduling that you can't really do much about, but it is a massive thing, is like basically you have a monopoly over sports for the first 12 days of the tournament, and then football starts in this country, right? And then you're having to navigate. And so for some reason, we don't care about like the viewership in semifinals and, in quarterfinals, and those aren't the numbers that get released. It's the finals, right? But it's also opening day or not opening day, but first Sunday of the NFL season.
Record year for the NFL.
What do you do with that, especially when the TV network that the U.S. Open is partners with has college football on Saturday? The driver because I've seen, some people, by some people I mean me, start earlier in the morning before producer Mike corrects me. The driver of ratings on ESPN is their morning shows and their predictive stuff and their fantasy football and basically the whole run up. So it's not as if you can start on ABC, their partner, in a morning or an earlier time, because then all of a sudden you're in direct conflict with their, regular programming. So how do you fix or maybe there's no way to, but it is a challenge all of a sudden at the best moments of your tournament in the finals and the biggest matches, all of a sudden football walks in.
That's been the longstanding history, right? It's not new for us. It's been decades of having the opportunity of Labor Day is key for us. We could move the tournament back, but Labor Day
the NFL is going to take over Labor Day as soon as they get 18 games.
You can't move that back because then just 2 weekends of it.
Yeah.
Look, we look at TV ratings are obviously critically important. It's the second largest revenue source for the USTA, for the US Open. Ticketing, hospitality, suites, that's the number one. And we don't look at it in a single year. We don't look at it in a single session. Look, at the end of the day, so many variables contribute to ratings. 2023 was record. Why? Look at the personalities that drove the 2023 with Coco, with the Ben Shelton Novak semi, the Alcaraz semi. So you are, destined to how the matches unfold. And, the nice thing about tennis is a variety of different personalities that make up our cast of characters for this entertainment. And then we've just got the competition, and the competition was heavy this weekend. I'm a massive fan of the NFL. They had more games. They had a Friday night game. Thanks. They went up against her semi. And, Tom Brady made his debut. So the reality of it is we are in a highly competitive entertainment space. And that's why, this energy within the entire U.S. Open team is how we're going to continue to drive growth and to deal with the deck of cards we have. And we work, very closely. We're on ABC this year. We're super jazzed about being on ABC for the final Sunday and the middle Sunday. But, now we're doing the intrinsic. Is that a good window for us? Are we better off to stay at the 4 o'clock window on ESPN? Don't think so, but, the team's having a good debrief with our friends at ESPN and ABC. And, we will have record ratings in Italy and the surrounding countries of Europe. And I'm pretty sure Sky Sports did well with Mr. Jack Draper. So it's a big macro global lens, but look at, the majority of our TV revenues come from our good friends at ESPN.
And I say that tennis is like the original best reality show, right? Because like the NFL, when they're putting their games together, they can cherry pick the biggest star of the moment, place them on the sweetest spot. Like tennis is like, we don't care if Coco's the biggest star on earth. Like we have someone who's creating their own star path, and that's Emma Navarro, and she takes him out, and you deal. And it's not as if that's a slight to Emma. It's just she is not box office mover yet. She will be more and more if she keeps
She
playing
will
like
be.
this. Like
Look,
it's
what
no
a year
disres-
she's had.
But
Unbelievable.
you're reacting to, not unlike other sports, you can't pick and choose, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce to put in prime time on the second Sunday. Like you just can't do it. Like it's a moving target at all times.
You can ask Travis Kelce to come though.
You can ask him. You can have him show up at the final.
Yeah, that's good. Is the event is bigger than any one athlete, and again, that is no disrespect to any of them, and that's why events that really understand this sport and entertainment experience, and it doesn't matter who's on the court, it is going to be a thriller. And I spent long years in Canada, hockey. Who wanted to come to see the Canadian Open up at York University? You'll remember it was a lousy stadium.
Yeah.
Right. And
pretty
women's
lousy.
sport in 2000 really wasn't that popular. And we just had 150,000 fans come and watch the women's only event. And I never, ever had to give anybody their money back after they saw a women's match. And so we know it's going to be a great on-court experience. And then we surround it with this incredible food, beverage, merch, all of those activations that you see. American Express Fan Experience, one of the best activations in the country for fans at any sporting event.
Walk me through, because this is obviously massive news during the U.S. Open. You announced a new 12-year extension with ESPN as your broadcast partner. Walk me through the details of that deal, not even just financial, but just reach, markets, everything else, and then tell me why you made the decision to make sure that I'll never commentate a night match at the U.S. Open.
Well, we're going to take over the world feed in 2026, so I've had strict instructions to say, Andy, we want you on the U.S. Open host.
Surf simulcast.
Surf simulcast. Yeah, we'll make it.
Now. Come on, man.
Surf simulcast will be cheaper than anything you're paying for now. I'll tell you that much right now. We literally launched this whole show with like a Happy Meal and $400. We're gonna be fine.
I know that was part of our conversation.
In serious, tell us about this new extension.
Yeah, we knew that our agreement was coming to the time for renewal. The classical early negotiating period. All of the credit goes to the queen of U.S. Open revenue, Kirsten Corio. She's our chief commercial officer. She led that very skillfully. Both parties wanted to stay married. We both wanted to get a deal done. We had IMG as our strategist and consultant, and they did a phenomenal job at providing the marketplace value. We had a very healthy negotiation. At the end of the day, Mark Shapiro at IMG helped, Lou Shear and Jimmy Pitero, and we got a deal done. And we're thrilled. And they're the home of tennis. They are the leader in sport. When you say you're on ESPN, there's a cachet to that brand. And we get the value of the Disney platforms because of our mission to grow the game. There's other opportunities for the sport inside the Disney family. And look, they covered every single match, every single qualifying match. They even did the U.S. Open Stars. They did the U.S. Open Next. And all of Fan Week, the full engine. And those are hundreds and thousands of hours of exposure for our sport. And they've been a great partner. We're thrilled that we were able to get the renewal done.
Talk us through markets. It's not just the States, right?
Yes, it's my homeland. So TSN, RDS, and then into Mexico. So North America and South America.
How active are you guys in helping shape how they cover it? And kind of picking the next generation of commentators, but also leaning in on technology and stats and kind of where the future of coverages is going and where you guys want it to go. And
why should Eubanks and James Blake get more reps?
Didn't Eubanks do a great job?
He's brilliant.
He's awesome.
Okay. And look, we have this annual conversation. We have great talent on the ESPN roster. But I think we all know that an athlete who's just finished a match, you could see the chemistry when it's athlete to athlete and that close camaraderie that Eubanks has with Big Foe. Come on, Big Foe. Don't tell me this coined answer. Give it to me real, man. That is great TV. And so, look, they ultimately choose. We do have some input. It's important for us to have the great. It's important for us to have a diverse um, commentator crew, not only gender, race, and those that are contemporaries for the athletes of today, because that's important. And that's what Fan Week's great about, because the athletes are chilled and they have access. And so you just saw constant, they're coming off the practice court, they're going on the practice court, they're doing the headsets and talking. All that content then that's generated by ESPN during Fan Week then gets sprinkled into the main draw show, which is cool.
I'll tell you an actual like lived experience. You're talking about ESPN doing like the star and that. So there's a couple Exos Tuesday, Wednesday. There was like a huge mixed doubles thing for like a massive bounty for mixed doubles. That was awesome. Coco played it. Benchel, the whole Citsadosa was in it. Like they had kind of some really cool teams. And then Stars of the Open, which was the next night, which was Novak and Alcaraz, and like I think one of the highlights of my year was watching Novak get into like an inside out backhand where it basically just became a pissing contest with him and Andre, and like basically we know we have the best two backhands of all time, and let's actually avoid forehands at all cost, even though we're both playing the deuce side, and just puring. It was like the fan in me was I was freaking out, but like the reality was. Never, ever in my life would I ever imagine that when Budarak emails me and was like, hey, can you do this Stars thing? And, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, yeah, what is it? It's 10 point tiebreaker, in and out. I have to do our live show as long as it's after that. And so that's it. Like I'm doing this thing because I was asked, and, there's many, many layers to all of these discussions, but I'm walking around. I go from our show where I'm in a collared shirt, like a jeans, and I'm wearing like Birkenstocks, and I see Caroline Wozniacki, who's my partner that night, and she's obviously like a current player, so she's in
her full kit,
in shape, and like actually looks like a professional tennis player. And so she comes up. Oh, that's great, but let's play. I hadn't seen her in a while. We're just catch up. She goes, when was the last time you played like a point on Ash? I'm like, 12 years ago, but what does that have to do with anything? And she's like, no, we're on Ash 1. Like my experience was like, we're going to be on like I don't know. Like I just was going to figure it out. And then she's like, oh yeah, no, we got to get, then we got to get mic'd up for TV.
I'm on ESPN too.
I'm like, mic'd up for timeout. Mic'd up for TV. No one told me this shit? Like, what are you talking about mic'd up for TV?
Strategizes. It only tells you what you need to know. Just gives you the time. Show up, man.
No, I'm sure he got an email somewhere and he just missed it.
No, at that point, but it's like smart, because at that point, if I cancel, it's like I'm a dick. Like I can't do that to people that are good to me. It's the whole thing. So anyways, I find myself out on Ash in front of 22,000 people with zero preparation. I'd flown in from internet. Anyways,
but it was fun, wasn't it? That was a great night.
Yeah.
That was my first time in Ash. Yeah, that was awesome.
I was super happy I had to do that. That was a great initiative, Stacey. That was fantastic. I'm glad I had to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I got to see the greatest tennis players ever. That was my first time in Ash.
And me.
And they were.
And Andy Roddick.
Yeah. And you know what? Andre and Johnny Mack, they too were excited by being out there playing with Novak and Carlos. And let me tell you, those are the two easiest asks of a player I've ever made in my career. When we asked Novak and Carlos, instantaneously, yes.
They get it.
They get it.
Novak especially, like later, like we all get judged for. I did terrible things when I was 19 years old and said terrible things and broke lots of stuff. But like, let's give credit, because he's in on like kind of the macro issues and conversations, and it's not surprising, and maybe you're surprised to hear that it's not surprising that he goes instant yes, no problem. Credit where credit is due. So one thing I want to ask, and this is, I don't know, we've taken too much of your time already, but like we've seen the formatting work in Fan Week, right? Where it's mixed doubles followed by exo doubles, and it's really fun. Where the hell does doubles fit in this whole conversation? And are we, I always have the conversation like, well, it's marketing. It's like, okay, do you take those marketing dollars away from an 18-year-old who could be a future star and winner of the singles and put it into a product that it's not like it's user education. Like everyone knows what doubles is. Where does it fit into kind of the US Open landscape, and what are the challenges? What are the solutions?
Look, again, long career. Don't have to go through the numbers, and especially when I was the head of the WTA, looking at doubles is a great product, and the majority of tennis players play doubles. But the only time we can look at proof of reality, generally, when you have singles players playing doubles, we have more people watching. We sold almost 10,000 tickets for Mixed Madness. And the rest of the doubles matches of the US Open, there's a lot of content in singles. That's one of the other challenges. When you've got long 3-4 hour singles matches back to back, and then there's a doubles match, you're only going to have that small niche, those diehards who love it. And like, I love doubles, but the current product is not optimal for this macro 894 matches we have, the 600 players. And I don't think it is about just marketing. It has to do with who's playing. If there's a product on the shelf and it's not being bought, then manufacturers adapt the product. And I think there needs to be some adaptation. I would love to see more singles players play. I know that's a tall order, but here's the reality. 50% of the main draw players are finished on Thursday night, the first week of main draw. 50% of them. And they're singles players that could play great doubles. But we have the sign-in for doubles on Sunday morning. The doubles draw is Sunday. If you're a singles player, you're not playing, especially the guys. We still have a few women playing
best of five,
doubles.
best of three day. Like the women normally play best of three every day during the regular season, and they get more rest during a slam, and the guys don't.
So this would be unpopular, but I think we have to reimagine it. That maybe the doubles draw of the US Open starts on Saturday. Double sign-in is on Friday.
The Saturday of the first week?
I like that.
Of Labor Day weekend.
I mean, there's no reason why. It's not as if 10 doubles matches in 7 doubles matches in 10 days is a massive ask physically if you're not also having to negotiate singles.
Correct. So at least we have an opportunity for singles, the guys to play, and the women who are out. And then you might have more singles players playing. Look, one of the best doubles matches, aside from Mixed Madness and the stars of the Open, was Taylor Townsend and Donald Young.
What a story. That was a great story.
Over in the grandstand. But, Taylor's, a singles player, solid. And we had the romance of Donald's run and his last match. But that was awesome. If we could have more of that, that's good for the fans.
I mean, it's good for the players too.
Well,
I mean, it gives
for the players.
They can sign longer term brand deals during the US Open knowing that they are going to be playing regardless.
Totally.
All 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, the other thing is you're not fighting for space. Like as an analyst, you get to, Mike, we do these shows where we do a redraw, and we do this dumb thing, Stacey, where our draw shows, I do the draw show. The first time I'm seeing the draw is on air. And we do every match because I like to be wrong as often as possible. But point being, like, if you're having to compete with 128 singles players and 64 singles matches on each side during week one, court space, attention spans, yada, yada, yada.
Rooms,
you're only
practice
competing
courts
against 2 or 3, like the second week. By the end, you're not really competing. There's a lot of space for conversation, right? Like as an analyst,
that's when we need the content.
We don't need it in the first. I'm just telling you, I had a dumber idea scratched out here, and I think yours is better. But as far as an analyst, it would be much easier for me to actually pay attention to doubles and give it some space if it wasn't competing with all of singles. Right? I mean, just simply, it's like a real estate play. We can't, it's just, you got to fit in your products that drive revenue, as Stacey said. So do you expect, like, the arguments? I mean, you said there's going to be some pushback. It seems like a good sales pitch.
Right? But look, players don't like change.
Oh, God.
Right? And I know, look, the ATP's been trying some things with doubles. I did it when I was at the WTA. I brought in no net scoring in the 10-point tiebreaker. But honestly, it's got to be faster. And you cannot deny, we've had the Bryan brothers, the greatest of all time. The norm, they're the special ones.
Yes, they're the exception in most conversations.
They're the exception. And it's sad that these great athletes, people aren't watching them. So we just keep, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And so, look, we are an innovative slam. We want to collaborate and cooperate with the athletes, with the tours, but it's something that we need to look at for sure.
And just to be clear, because I know I get in trouble every time I talk about doubles, and I just get very, very passionate doubles fans. This isn't you saying less money. This isn't you saying it's just let's take a 5-day break at the beginning and let's maximize the field. Let's maximize the exposure by shortening the duration of the start and the finish.
Let's give ourselves a chance for these great athletes to have an opportunity to shine in front of crowds. We don't need all of that content. And look, we're crushed with facilities and practice courts. Take a guess at how many, there's 600 players. How many coaches, trainers,
this is going to be a good one,
and guests are credentialed?
Ooh, okay, 600 players. The top players all have at least 27 people along with them at all times now. So
a couple of them do, yes.
Yeah. 600. So it's at least average is probably guessed. You're probably at minimum is probably 3 per person. You have to up it then you have federation coaches. Then you have, there's going to be 6,000 credentials.
Half of that. There's 3,200 credentials for coaches, trainers, physios.
But that's before you get to
homies,
me as a credential.
Man.
But that's before you. But there's more based on people who aren't directly associated with the orbit of a player.
Okay,
just to be clear,
12,000. There's 12,000 credentialed people on site every day.
Okay, so but
they're working.
I somehow overshot it and undershot it all in the same answer.
No, this is just players.
Can you talk? Andy was telling me that there's plans to do expansion on the player side and the practice courts and everything. Can you kind of walk us through kind of the expansion
along with the metrics that
along with the metrics you just said, because it's only going to become more crowded, right? The more popular something gets, the more crowded it gets, both on the player side and the fan side.
So it's starting now, a new player performance building in a 2-story parking lot, what we call parking lot A. That's that lot that's right at the entrance of the President's Gate. So it'll take 3 years to build, and we're going to double the amount of space we have for the athletes. That's their locker rooms. That's outdoor fitness, because if you go to Wimbledon, they have that massive outdoor fitness area. The athletes want to actually train and do their fitness in the environmental conditions that they're competing in versus the upstairs gym. And sort of think of like an Equinox spa, really, really elevating that whole experience. And what do athletes need? They need some calmness, right? Because when they open up those doors, it's chaos with the fans, with their guests. They want us to credential all their guests, but then they say, put them over there. So don't give them access.
I want you to credential my aunt, but I also don't want to see her before I play. Yeah.
Correct. Yes. So we have to give them this solitude, recovery areas, double the dining space. You know what it's like, the player lounge. You can't move.
It's a train station.
It was crazy.
He went day one. I'm like, day one is different. It'll look different week 2, but like day one is a train station.
It felt like 6,000 people.
Yeah. Yeah, and like we're the last slam to have renovated and world class facilities. Arthur Ashe is 27 years old, and we've done a nice job with some carpet and paint and furniture. But at the end of the day, we need more space, and we need state of the art performance building for the athletes. So we're excited.
I need one more question from you, and it's just for my own pure fascination. Has nothing to do with the great job that you've done, but I don't know whose lane this is, but okay. So like I have this question on security. Okay, so like I'm imagining, I'll give you my view when I'm sitting watching the final, and I'm at the back of the court looking. I have just a great seat, not as good as yours on night one, Mike, but good. And so 40 yards to my right, right on the curve of the bend of the stadium, I see Swift and Kelsey, right? So they're there. So that was kind of fun too. I'm watching the match, and then I'm just watching their orbit, which I couldn't do. Props to them, but like I would never leave my house. But their entire orbit, and then not 50 yards down, like 50-yard line, is Elon Musk sitting in one of the suites. Like, that's a lot. That's a lot of like name power for Earth. In a very like I can't run. I could have run from point to point in 6 seconds, right? And that's not a testament to my speed. I assure you, the security alone has to be a fucking nightmare.
It's the number one priority of the U.S. Open team, and it's led by Danny Zausner, my mixed doubles partner. He's responsible for all the facility operations, food and beverage, and security. Security is number one. The courts are number two. There's nothing more important, and we have to use this opportunity. It's the largest annual international event in the United States every year, U.S. Open. We can only do this, and we're so indebted to NYPD.
Yes, props.
To FDNY.
Yep.
The New York City Parks Enforcement Police that are outside our gates. The federal law enforcement, including Department of Homeland Security, counterterrorism. There are hundreds and hundreds of service people, uniformed, ununiformed, the gate access, that are keeping us safe. It's inside the U.S. Open. It's the safest place to be in New York City. The superhero dogs, they're there every morning sweeping the buildings before we all arrive. And even the cooperation of LaGuardia. There's no flyover of planes during matches. And
which is impossible because LaGuardia, for people that haven't been there, LaGuardia is literally it's U.S. Open, Mets, LaGuardia. Not a lot of space between.
Can I say from a fan perspective, right? Like it was easy to get an Uber, it was easy to get in and out, and I worked for the NFL early in my career for 5 years, did 5 Super Bowls. I've been to the Super Bowl as a fan, and getting in and out of the Super Bowl is the worst experience as a fan. And they have like literally one day to do it, and you guys do it every day.
2 weeks,
for
3 weeks,
over 2
22
weeks.
days. 22 days we did it.
And you guys really, and then twice a day you literally do a brand new NFL Sunday. Twice a day. It's really impressive.
75 ticketed events, 75 turnovers. You put that into context. An NBA has 43, 45 home games. It's 75 home games during those 22. It's just incredible what our team has achieved. It's so proud and privileged to.
The U.S. Open this year had 100,000 more people than the Cowboys did all of last year attend their entire season.
Is that a real stat?
And that was the most attended.
Is that a real stat? That's a great one.
The Cowboys had 748,000.
You need to write that on your little computer. That's a great stat.
In 8 games. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So,
well, listen.
They only have 8 games. I'm sure if they had more games, they'd.
Yeah. I mean, but that's the number. That's the number one team.
Yeah.
That's the number one team.
That's a massive stat.
And you guys. It's impressive.
Well, Stacey, I couldn't be more thankful for you. Like, I hope people understand the scale, the size of this beautiful monster that exists now in New York City. Props to your team again to get billions of social engagements to increase merchandise revenue 20% year over year for a tournament that's been in existence over 50 years. It's not as if it would just was founded 4 years ago and we're up 20%. Largest attended butts and seats fan week. Listen, the accolades just seem to fall out of this place, and I know that's in no small part to you, your leadership, your team, everyone at the USTA, everyone responsible for working for the U.S. Open. Just a huge tip of the cap, respect, props. It's you must be full of pride, and your cup must be very full.
No question. It's might get emotional. No, it is just such a thrill and an honor for me to lead the U.S. Open alongside of Danny Zausner and Kirsten Corio. And you look at that press release and the results, and it's a host, talented people, Eric Buderak. I can go on and on of people talented like Eric and others. And we're only as good as the team. And the USTA has the best sport event marketing team in the world. And we are all energized, but what happened in 24, and I can tell you, everyone is just said, okay, so now what? Now what are we doing next year? How are we going to grow? And last ball isn't even 5 days, so we're totally energized.
Well, don't be
2025.
Have your team not be totally allergic to sleep.
Don't worry.
In the near term, anyways.
Staff wellness. Kirsten's at the beach right now. I was chatting with her. I told her no working on the beach. And hopefully everyone is chilling a bit. But yeah, we are inspired.
Well, we appreciate you. Anytime you want to come on and let us know the goings on of
thanks guys for what you're doing.
The best event on earth.
Love your show.
Appreciate you, Stacey. Safe
my
travel
mission
to
now
Berlin.
To get you on the world feed.
Shit, fucking world feed. You don't want that. I'm too much of I'm good on a podcast. We have an explicit rating on our podcast though, so
that's okay. We can do bleeping on the world feed.
We might need an 8-second delay.
Yeah, that's a trust fall that I don't know that I can make you take. Stacey, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Well done.
Thanks, guys.
So, Mike, the takeaway I had, amongst all the brilliance of what we just heard, the fact that I made a joke about never commentating a match on ESPN in my entire existence with this new extension, she wasn't like, oh no, it may happen. She's like, world feed. Basically, you're right. And
let alone also telling us we can cuss however much we want.
Which is not true.
No, it's definitely not true.
But listen, you do a podcast to try to put out interesting content, to try to get honest answers. If we've done anything on this podcast, I feel like we've gotten an honest accounting from a lot of people who don't normally sit down for an hour plus.
Yeah.
What were your takeaways with Stacey Allaster? I'm in awe. She's an absolute force.
Yeah, you had introduced me to her briefly at the Open this year, and even in the 5 minutes I talked to her there, I was in awe. And then after this, just the fact that they're able to put this, she called it a factory and a machine, right? And ultimately it is, and it's the most entertaining and well-run thing I think I've ever seen in the sports and entertainment space. And it blew me away in person, and then hearing her intelligence and insight and years of experience that have led to what the current U.S. Open is, I'm excited for what it's going to be next year, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. It's in great hands.
The common thing between every interview, whether it's with a player, whether it's with an executive that's had success, whether it's someone, whether it's SEAL, whether it's, as we've kind of gone through this, and every week is like an opportunity to learn something, it's a million little decisions, reps, conversations, relationships that ultimately lead to a big thing happening. It's not one decision that leads to a big thing happening. It's consistent discipline and focus that lead to a Grand Slam title, that lead to Grammys, that lead to Emmys, that lead to the biggest annual international sporting event on earth.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just, I don't know. I feel lucky for the guests we get. I feel lucky when we get a yes. I feel lucky that people give us time. I feel lucky that this is a place where people feel like they can be honest with us, and then, with you.
We're going to keep the U.S. Open kind of wrap ball rolling, though. We're going to have your friend on.
Yeah, we're going to have Michael Fuhr on. And we were going to, I initially had this thing and we'll just do inside baseball, is I had the idea. I was like, we need to do a business of the US Open show. Like I came back, I'm like, this is such a monster. And so what does that entail? I mean, tournament director, someone who understands, revenues created, so Stacey Allaster is like pie in the sky. That would be the best. And so I emailed her. I also was like, okay, the production, what does the US Open become, right? It's this jazzy, this spectacle of lights and show. And there's an event even outside of the tennis. And I'm like, oh, it's Michael Fiore. It's my friend from a million years ago, who started at Kids Day and opening night in 1997 while he was working for Radio City. I go, the locker room interviews, walking down the dark hallway, all those moments where you're getting that behind view, walking onto Arthur Ashe. It's just a different immersive experience, especially for watching tennis. And he's agreed to come on the podcast. And then I was like, okay, well, and this won't come out. It'll be evergreen and it has nothing to do with current events, but I think it's fine to say. I was like, okay, player side and then media side, we need to and I was like, oh, Eubanks, like he does both. So I initially wanted these 3 people for one episode. We've done 3. They have to live individually. And so they'll come out, whenever they come out. But man, we've had some fun, good content. Michael Fiore listen to his thing from from getting all the decisions right to saying no to Taylor Swift performing at the US Open.
Yeah, because that's normal, right? That's who you say no to.
A million right decisions. You're going to have a couple ones that go sideways.
Yeah, he redeemed himself this year.
Shit, Michael Fiore is a rock star. He's amazing. Eubanks is a great conversation. We talk about basically him becoming an overnight success at 27 and basically the decision making between being a very, very good tennis player and one of the best broadcasters I've seen straight out of the gate, right? A natural. He's like a Federer, Novak, Rafa broadcasting talent. But he has to run through the finish line of his career, but it's got to be good to know what the next 20 or 30 years of your life look like. So the US Open business episode is now going to be, I don't know how we'll arrange it. Part 1, part 2, Eubanks lives on an island.
Follow, subscribe, and you'll find out.
Yeah. But anyways, we got a bunch of really, really cool content coming down the way. Thank you for watching Served.